So this week I've been mainly shitting myself because I have been doing my first video shoot, and today we're going to be talking about how you cannot shit yourself when you do the same video shoot. The rest is just your problem. Welcome back, guys. It's Byron Phillips from byronphillipsmedia.com, and today we're going to be talking about your first time preparing for a video shoot for your first client. This was such the case for myself, and it went well. It did. I was really happy. In fact, I fucking loved it. Pardon my language. But this video is aimed at helping you guys with your first video shoot, and some of the things that you can expect or not expect, or some of the things that I didn't take into account for. So we're going to run through exactly the prep that I done for this shoot and the changes I would have made. So the first thing that I've done was meet with the customer as much as I could. Now this proved difficult because she was a busy person, and every time that we'd arranged to meet at the business, she was always with a client. So you have to be very, very patient when you're doing this. That was no issue at all, because these are genuine reasons why a person cannot meet with you. Now for me, it was lucky, it was close to where I work, but unfortunately it might be the case that what you guys are doing, you might be further afield, so you might get to a client and they might not be able to see you, and that's going to be really, really frustrating. So the only thing I can suggest is take your time, and hopefully if you haven't lost your shit, and you can remain cool and be very personal and polite and say, no problem, I can work around you, let me know when we can do this again. Hopefully, if that works out, then you will get to meet with the client and you can talk about the type of things that the client likes. For instance, you need to find out what the personality is like of the client. Are they very happy? Are they bubbly? Are they more relaxed and chilled? Are they an introvert? You need to really find what that is about the customer, because that's going to drive how you create the content and the type of mood that you're going to create the content. The last thing you want is to be given something that's mental active to a client that is very, very relaxed. They're just not going to like it, so it'll save you wasting a whole lot of time. Find out what music they're into, because that will help drive the content, the backing music to the stuff that you're going to create. Now when I finally managed to meet with my client, we went through those things, and she's a very relaxed and lovely person, and she's into indie, alternative and grime and that type of music, so I knew what type of vibe to kind of shoot the images, the video in. So the next thing I wanted to find out is, where does she advertise? What is the main driver? Now I knew that she advertised on Instagram, and the next thing you need to find out is what other media outlets is this client advertising on, because you want to make sure that the content that you create is applicable to all those. So for Instagram it's 60 seconds. I'd say the same was beneficial for Facebook. Anything longer than that, and you really need to be on the ball with the content, and it's got to be really engaging. The next then is finding out exactly what the customer wants to shoot. So in the instance for my customer, this was the first time she was using such a service. So this is a time for you to shine and really pull out your creativity and say, look, I've been looking at your business and I can see these are the things that you're doing. So I could see that she was doing all natural products. That was definitely one area we could shoot. Another area was that they're part of a small community and they are close knit. So let's show that. Let's show the community that you're in. The next was that she had a refurb. It was recently done, so we can show the shop aesthetics. So that was another part of the video. And then the final part is then of her actually in the workplace cutting someone's hair. So there I had a basis of 4 different avenues that I knew what to create a short list for. So the first tip is meeting with the client and getting as much information as you can from the client. It is going to be the building block of how you set the shoot up, the relationship you're going to have, and the customer needs to know what to expect from yourself. So when it comes to the day, she knows that you are coming in to shoot products, to shoot the community, to shoot the aesthetics. It's going to be quite jarring for a customer if you say, I'm just going to turn up and shoot shit and just be a maverick and go all over the place. People don't like it. If you do, you're a mental case, because you need someone who's going to be methodical, creative, but what's the word I'm looking for? I'm just going to say not a mental case that looks like a fly whizzing around the room, shooting everything, and there's no structure, because you're not going to know if that's going to fit later on. Yeah, so don't be mental. So the next thing you need to do is actually work out the location the customer is at, which you should have already done by now because you've met with the customer a few times, but the actual closest point that you can park safely. Now, you can be carrying a lot of equipment. You might not be carrying a lot of equipment. It depends on the customer's needs. So if you don't, this step is not for you and you can piss off. If you're carrying a lot of equipment like myself, I didn't have a big enough bag to do this. So one of the things that I had to do was assess all the equipment that I needed to take and how I was actually going to carry it to the actual client site. Now, it would have meant about 4 or 5 bags. I didn't have 4 or 5 bags. So I bought a big bag, which was on like a trolley wheels, and it was from Newer, and it's worked out brilliant. But I had to investigate the actual logistics of getting there, because it was only until that point that I realized I can't carry all of this. I'm going to look like a packed donkey walking down the streets of Cardiff with a bag here, a bag there, which wouldn't have been a bad thing, but from the sea, and it's just not going to look sexy. No one likes to walk looking stupid. Sometimes you're just going to look stupid, but no one wants to intentionally look stupid with 30 bags and you're going to have to walk 2 miles. Now, I've increased that by a mile, but I'm just saying. So find out the logistics. You really need to think about this part, because if you can't physically get your kit to the client site, then you're going to have to revisit what it is you can provide for the client. So be very, very mindful of that. So the next tip you're going to need to do is, or undertake, is get as much reference shots as you can. This is imperative because when I went to the client, the shop itself was pretty small. Now, that's no by means a bad thing. It just means it's going to give you better information on the decisions that you need to make. So I knew that the customer wanted product shots. She wanted shots of the community. She wanted shots of the actual aesthetics of the building. Now, in order to do that, I had to take as much reference material as I could. This was all done on my phone. I went down after work, took as much photos as I could. I think I took about 20 in total, but that was enough for me to know how big the shop is, the actual floor plan, how the light falls in the shop, the actual community, how everything is working within that area, what type of floor plan the community has. And that shop space that she is located in is not massive, so you really need to be mindful of setting up your equipment. So that is the next tip, is take as much reference shots as you can. This will really help moving forward. So the next tip is actually setting up a list of all the product shots, or the shots that you're going to be taking on the day. So like I mentioned before, there were 4 areas that we needed to cover. One was the products, the aesthetics, the community, and actual cutting of the hair. So then you need to work out exactly how you're going to shoot those 4 areas. So I knew for the product shots, I wanted to use my Electron system. That would allow me to really get dynamic movements, or simple movements but repeatable. So all I would have to do is get it right once, and then it was just a case of putting the products on, repeating the process, and then we had the nice product shots. For the actual community, I decided that I was going to use a mix of the gimbal and the Edelkrone system, so I knew I needed to take my Flycam to do this. The next then was the aesthetics. Again, that was using the Edelkrone, but I was also using a manual pan head, which was on the setup. So it was a combination of using that and the Edelkrone system. Now for the actual shooting of the customer with the hair, this was done with a gimbal and handheld. Now originally I intended on using the Edelkrone system, but the problem was that the shop area was quite small and I needed to use the tripod and the rig in order to set it up properly and get in there. But I didn't want to interfere with the customer because I didn't know if any of the clients were going to feel uncomfortable. I wanted to be as unobtrusive as much as I can, so I stayed away from using that and I just used the Flycam, and I did some handheld movements with the camera. So I kept it nice and light and stayed out the way of the customer, but got the as much shots as I got, and it turned out really well, and I'm really pleased. But the important thing is knowing how you're going to shoot things, when you're going to shoot it, and convey that to the customer. So the product shot list will literally detail what you're going to be shooting throughout the day, and it's good to have a plan, because on your first shoot it's going to be really nerve-wracking. It was nervous when I first got there. I was bloody nervous, and I'm not gonna lie, and there were moments where I was like, oh, this is not hard, but I was like, am I doing the right thing? Is this really me? Because you're in a public area and people aren't watching you, but they're watching you, so they do that casual sit in. I wonder what that motherfucker's doing. He's got a camera, thinks he's fancy pants. It's probably not what they're thinking, but that was what's going through my head, and you've got all those to go through. So the best thing you can do is work out a plan for the day. So I knew the first thing I wanted to do was product shots, and the reason for that is that I wanted to get the customer comfortable with me being there. So I stayed outside the shop because I took the reference shots, and I could see that I could do the product shots outside, but I could keep a line of view of the shop. So you had the product shot and then a line of the view. So it wasn't just a case of here's some products. The products were being tied to the customer's building, which it turned out really well, and she's really chuffed with it. So I'm really pleased with how that turned out. But you have to be very mindful of the day itself and how it's going to pan out, because when shit happens, and it will, because it happened to me, not with the actual shot list, but with a bit of equipment, you're going to need a workaround. So work out what it is you can achieve with the equipment that you've got. Go back through that list and say, right, okay, this is what I'm using to achieve these shots. What happens if that fails? What am I going to do to supplement that, to make sure that this works? So for me, the whole reason why I had the manual pan head is because if anything happened with the Edelkrone, I could switch to that. So that was my backup for the products. If for some reason the arse fell off the gimbal, I could go to handheld. So you need those things in mind when you're doing the product shot list. Do it for the day. Do your main method of capturing the image. What is your backup plan? What is your backup plan for each of those shots? How are you going to light it and everything? So yeah, product shot list, get it done, because it's going to pay dividends on the day. Right, so the next thing you're going to want to do is actually practice. Now from the product shot list that you've done, oh, I'm tired, excuse me, you're going to know exactly what equipment you're going to need to use. Now in my instance, because I took a lot of reference shots, I knew what I wanted to take. Now the only thing I was concerned about is that it's a lot of equipment and it takes time to set up, and I was just like, I need to find a way of it being set up but maneuverable. So what I've done, the tripod is now attached to a dolly. Now this is by Newer and it's one of the folding dollies. Now I'm not using it as a dolly system where you can push and get nice smooth shots. That's not what it's being used for. It's being used to make this rig maneuverable. So my tripod is now on these dolly. On the tripod itself there is a slider. Now this slider has been bastardized because I'm no longer using it. So what I've done is I've used it as a mobile rig. Now this is on top of the tripod and this is being used with 2 carriages. So on one carriage I can use the Edelkrone system. I can set this up completely and that is sitting there one side. On the other side I got a manual pan head. So if I don't need to rely on the Edelkrone system, I can use the manual pan head. Now this gives me flexibility on whether or not what type of shots I want. So if I'm going to use the manual pan head, it's right there. If I want to use the Edelkrone system, it's right there. Now the way that I've achieved this, I've had to buy 3 new quick release plates, and the third one is actually being used on the Flycam gimbal. Now the reason for that is that I can now go from using the rig straight to the gimbal, and I already balanced this out. So I knew exactly what the setup was going to be on the day. I made sure that I stabilized the actual camera onto the Flycam so I could pull it off the rig, go straight to the glide cam straight away. It was just a case of undoing one knob, putting the camera on, tighten it back up, on a way to go. Now that could have been a lot longer process, but because I did the reference shots and the product shot list, I knew exactly what I wanted from the day, and I knew exactly how I wanted things to go. So that meant I had to purchase some stuff. Like I had to purchase the bag, I had to purchase quick release plates. Now I know I'm doing this free for the customer, but this is an investment in myself. So it worked out perfect because I bought some additional arms that could fit onto the slider, and this is holding my field monitor, the Desview R7. That's working out per crack and I love it. I also bought 2 microphone arms. Now this is being used for an actual microphone, but on the day one of them was being used as a video light. Now that was the Aperture, I think it's the M9, the small one, and that was being used for the product shots, but it worked out perfect. The second arm I intended to use my mobile phone and a wide lens, the Moment wide angle lens, to do some BTS. Now that was the one thing that I didn't do on the day, but that doesn't mean the arm can't hold it. And if I pull this down, so if you can see, so on the end of this arm I've got the microphone, but I've got a clamp and I've got a swivel ball head. So literally all I need to do is move this about and there we go. So I can tighten this up. So then that means I can attach a camera or the mobile phone as a BTS cam, and that was what I had planned on the day. Now let me just move that out. There we go. There we go. I just angled out. Yeah, I think I can't tell. There we go. Forget. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So it worked out perfect. It worked out brilliant. I was really stoked with how the rig was, and the client was really impressed as well. She was like, I love this. This is brilliant. This is because she loved technical stuff, and she loved the setup because it was small and compact and it didn't get in her way. She could do her job, but it meant I could do my job. So those are the things that you really need to think about, is that on the day you need to practice. Sorry, before the day you need to practice. And for me, I had to practice setting this up. Now in the end, it took me, at the start it was taking me half hour to get everything sorted. Now that's not long, but when you're at the client site and in your public area, half hour feels like a long time. So in the end, I managed to get this down to 15 minutes, and I've been getting it down to 15 minutes now. You're talking about setting the tripod up, setting the slider, setting the camera, the field monitor, the 2 arms with whatever you need, the Edelkrone system, the pan head. It was all set up within 15 minutes and works out perfect. Now on the day, it took me longer. So I think it took me about 20. And that was because I was faffing with something that failed me, and that was the tilter wireless follow focus. For some reason, it just wouldn't work. It did. And then it worked when I got home, and I was just like, you asshole. But because I'd done the product shortlist, it was one of those nice to haves. It wasn't one of those things where I was using it as a main feature. So even though it was frustrating because I spent an extra 10-15 minutes after everything was set up faffing with it, it done my head in. But it didn't kill me. So yeah, practice. It makes a world of difference. And it's going to be a really nerve-wracking day for you. It was for me. You know, driving there, walking there, setting up. It's a nerve-wracking time because people are watching you, not just the client, but the shops around you, and that's a lot of eyes, and it's daunting. And the last thing you want to do is get through all that agony and get home and you're just like, ugh, it looks shit. Thankfully it didn't. I go home and I was just like, I can work with this. I'm happy. I'm really happy with what's been shot. I could have done a lot better, but it's learning, and that'll come in time. This is by far not going to be my best work, but it's the best with the skill set and the current position I am at this point in time. It couldn't have gone better. So practice. That is my last tip for the day. Practice. Oh, and don't shit yourself unless you take nappies. But highly advise you don't do that because that just looks nasty in front of customers. But yeah, practice.